everyone. This is a bit of an odd video for me because I'm not actually live streaming this right now. I'm just straight up recording this because while I did complete this game last time, I was really curious about getting the other endings that are in this game. But I didn't think there would be enough content to fill up a live stream, so that's why I'm deciding to go this route instead. So yeah, you won't be seeing me interacting with chat or alerts popping up or anything like that. It'll be purely me playing this game, getting the different endings, and interacting directly with the camera. But yeah, I found a guide online. I'm gonna pull it up and use that, and hopefully it works and we will get all of the endings to this game. So yeah, why don't we just go ahead and get started? So last time we got the Roberta ending is what it's been titled, even though I don't think any of I think they have names. Oh no, they're just achievements. But we are gonna go with, we're gonna save the Lillian ending for last. So there's a De Quincy ending, and then there's a probably the saddest one, I'm going to assume, which is called Suicide's Argument. So we're gonna go ahead and get the really sad ending out of the way, if that sounds good with you guys, because I'd rather get the sad stuff out of the way before we get the other stuff. And hopefully with the Lillian ending, it'll be nice and happy. I hope. Keyword is hope. Okay, so we're gonna start new game, and we're gonna skip all the previously read content. If anything new pops up and I'm not able to skip it, I'll read it. But otherwise, we're gonna blaze on through this. We are going to approach her. Even now, I don't remember what De Quincy's voice is. Okay, say nothing. Samantha's shoulders slumped as though crushed by a heavy weight, much like Atlas carrying the entire world on his shoulders. Samantha did not have any pretensions that her worries were worth nearly as much as that of the whole planets put together. But her worries certainly felt very pressing to her as they bore down against her brain. She did not say anything. She could not. Roberta was right, after all. If Samantha had to pick between Roberta and Lillian, she knew she would choose Lillian each and every time, even though spending time with Lillian only hurt her. Roberta could be aloof, but she was neither as cold nor as callous as Lillian could be. Samantha had known Roberta since she was 11 years old, and Roberta had always been there for her, even if she did preface her help with complaints. Samantha still had found memories of sleeping in Roberta's dorm room during her first year at St. Mary's when she had been anxious and unsure, incapable of spending the night alone. Samantha owed Roberta a lot, and yet, despite that, she could only bring herself to like Roberta. She liked Roberta a lot, but her feelings towards her were not the same as her feelings towards Lillian. Lillian was different. She always had been, and always would be. Roberta, perhaps sensing Samantha's thoughts, glared. Her expression was cold, colder than the deepest depths of the ocean. It's fine, Samantha. Don't bother explaining yourself. I know what you really think. But Bobby, I'm tired, even if you aren't. I think I'm going to take a nap. And with that, Roberta rested her head against the window and closed her eyes. Beyond her, the motorway rolled by, a gray concrete ribbon clustered with cars. It's nothing. Samantha let her head hang until it seemed in real danger of slipping right off her neck and shattering on the floor into 1,000 porcelain pieces. Her skin had gone white, just like writing paper, but her cheeks were stained a light rose water pink. She did not want to discuss her feelings with Lillian. Not now. Lillian had hurt her enough already, and she did not think she could stomach being rejected yet again. That was not an exaggeration either. Samantha's stomach was in such agony she was surprised she had not vomited down her front yet. It really is nothing, Lillian. Please don't trouble yourself over me. She hadn't done for the last 3 months, so why should today be any different? Lillian, however, did not seem to accept this response as readily as Samantha had hoped. She opened her mouth as though she wanted to say something, but then seemed to think better of it and closed it again. It was most unusual. Even though the gesture took only a few moments, it lingered in Samantha's mind. Lillian was not the kind of person who cut herself off. She was always so confident, so calm, so utterly at ease in her own skin that she never had cause to doubt her own judgment. What had she been going to say, and why did she reconsider? Samantha didn't know, but she couldn't help wondering. So then the next thing should be to defend her, which I think we did initially. So it should be... yeah, so we defend her. Wait. Oh, this is new. What cause did she have for concern anyway? Her previous conversation with Lillian had gone well, even if it had lasted little more than a minute. She should try to calm down, take a deep breath, and gather whatever wit she still had about her. She could do this. She would. I like little details like that, like previous choices. It's like maybe 2 lines, but it's still like a nice little change. We need to agree with her, which we've done before. Oh, wait. Lillian looked at her for a few moments, her lips pursed, expression carefully blank, before she, too, started to laugh. Yeah, we read this. Confide in Lillian, which I think we did before, too. Yeah, because then they have that whole conversation of like, hey, I really missed you, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, hey, we're not good for each other. You hurt me and I hurt you. Tell a lie. We did not do this before. Samantha did not want to confide in Roberta, even though the two were best friends. She did not have the heart. Instead, she forced a smile, even though doing so made her cheeks hurt. I'm fine. You don't need to fuss, Roberta. But your eyes look so sore. It's nothing, really. I feel a lot better now. Meaning you felt bad before. I always feel bad, Roberta. That's just how I am. But you usually feel better after you spend time with Lillian. Roberta glared at Lillian, her eyebrows furrowed. It was clear, despite Samantha's pitiful efforts to avoid Roberta's queries, Roberta had managed to figure out what had happened herself. I hope you didn't say anything to Sam, Lillian. You should know how much she cares about you. I am well aware of that, and I am flattered. I simply told her some things that needed to be said, that's all. Some things that you, if you really are her friend, should have told her yourself. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go and inform Miss Pope that Samantha and I have returned, and it appears Samantha is in no fit state to tell her herself. Whee! Okay, now we need to go to Georgia and Percy. Whee! What about Georgia and Percy? They seem to be having a lively conversation. Oh no. I have to do Percy's voice. Oh no. Aren't you going to eat any more, Georgia? No, I'm on a diet. Another diet? Yes, another diet. If I'm not careful, I'm going to end up as large as my mother one day, which, let me tell you, would not be a flattering look. You've never gone along with her, have you? With that fat old hag? Of course not. If I start to look like her, I'll kill myself. I really will. Please don't do that. Your life would still be worth living, even if you did happen to gain weight. Try telling that to society. You don't see many fat girls on the front cover of Vogue, do you? No, you do not. But that is something that we must protest against, rather than accept as being the norm. The media should not attempt to make us women ashamed of how we look. It's all a marketing ploy anyway. I'm not ashamed of how I look. Not right now, anyway. And it is precisely because I am not ashamed of my appearance now that I don't want to gain any weight. If you eat so little, you'll make yourself ill, though. Says you, Percy, who only ever eats grain like a baby bird. Percy Shelley, unlike the rest of her classmates, was eating out of a plastic box balanced on her knees. The youth hostel had not served a vegetarian option, so this box filled with snack foods was the only source of sustenance she had. It's not... Hold on. It isn't grain. These are oatmeal biscuits. They're good for me, and I have carrot stick and hummus too. Oh my gosh, there was a girl at my daycare. She always had like hummus for lunch because she brought everything was from home. Everything, all her food was from home. And she had hummus almost all the time and she loved it. And this is like a little toddler that's like hummus, so like all her healthy foods. And yeah, I think a chicken leg would be even better though, or a cut of rare beef, still bloody. Please don't talk about animal carcasses in front of me. Not when I'm trying to eat. It's making me feel ill. Samantha had never noticed it before, given she did not spend much time with Georgia, but her eating habits really were bizarre. Georgia was currently engaged in the strenuous task of mashing her boiled potatoes under the prongs of her fork, turning it into a lumpy mush. These motions seemed strangely mechanical, done with a great deal of precision, almost as one would carefully consider which keys to press while playing the piano, though the end result did not really seem worth it. Why was she bothering to mash her potatoes when she didn't seem to have the slightest interest in eating them anyway? Maybe Georgia's perpetually pale skin and pointed teeth weren't just for show. Could there be something more sinister behind it after all? Well, Samantha did not blame her for not eating the food. The heavy scent of potatoes that had been boiled for far too long hung in the air, a miasma of odor which turned Samantha's stomach. In such oppressive circumstances, she hadn't been able to eat much of her dinner either. You're at least going to... Oh, sorry. This is Percy. You're at least going to have something for pudding, right? Pudding? Georgia snorted. What am I, 6? Of course not. If I indulge myself now, it will undo all my hard work. But since you've been trying so hard, it's all right to treat yourself, isn't it? Tisk tisk. That kind of mentality is for the weak. I am stronger than that, and I won't succumb. Ooh, how admirable. And by the by, Georgia prodded her fork, the prawns coated in graved potato mush in Percy's direction. You're not going to have any pudding either. But why not? I'm not eating the main meal, but I thought I could at least have pudding. But I am on a diet. I don't want to see my best friend enjoying something that I can't have. It wouldn't be fair. You're the one who's being unfair, Georgia. I don't nag you for eating meat all the time, even though I find the act of consuming dead animals utterly abhorrent. So you could at least offer me the same common courtesy. But you forget, I am not common. I am Lady Georgia Gabriella Byron, remember? How could I forget when you impress that upon me every day? Well then, I don't know why you're still having this argument. Because you're being unfair. Life isn't fair, Percy. You need to learn to suck it up. But if I did that like everyone else does, then nothing would ever change. Why should things change? Because the way things are right now is unacceptable. How can you rest easy at night, Georgia, knowing there is so much suffering in the world? Quite comfortably, as a matter of fact. But I would rest easier if I knew, whilst I am stricken by pains of hunger. At least you are too. You really are shameless. You would have me buried alive with you upon your death if you could, Georgia. But of course, isn't that what friends are for? I believe the term you are searching for is not friend. Yeah. Georgia, but slave. As Samantha watched Percy and Georgia's two-person comedy routine, she felt a small smile rise to her lips. Idly, she wondered what it was like, being Georgia Byron. She never seemed to care what anybody thought of her, not even when their thoughts were less than favorable. Samantha wished she could be more like that, as she knew simply wishing for such a thing was futile. Wishing would not change a thing. She had to take action. to take action. But how? The world outside the window, just beyond the glass, was dyed a deep indigo. The stars spread out across the sky twinkled like fireflies. Samantha pressed one hand against the window pane, her palm lying flat against it, as though in an attempt to pluck a star out of the sky for herself. They glowed so brilliantly, with no outside assistance, that Samantha could not help but find it all inspiring somehow. Though the night sky was so cold and the stars were also very far away, they still shone. They did not stop. Samantha knew even if she were to close her eyes, the stars would continue to shine, for they did rely on... Sorry, this is worded weird, for they did rely on others to give them a reason for being. I think it's supposed to be didn't. For they didn't rely on others to give them a reason for being. But I don't know. That's just my educated guess. They continued to burn brightly with not a single thought spared for the microscopic, ant-like little humans down on Earth, who occasionally glimpsed them up in the night sky. Samantha wished she could be more like that. Ever since she had been little, she had been seeking approval from others, yearning for a way to justify her own existence. First, she had turned to her parents, next, her teachers, and now it was Lillian. Was that why she wanted Lillian to love her so desperately? Because she wanted some kind of reassurance that she deserved to be alive? I am loved, therefore I can live? Maybe, Samantha mused, she did not truly love Lillian. If she only loved Lillian in order to be loved in return, then her feelings could not have been genuine. Love should have been unconditional, after all. Yet Samantha's affections always came with unspoken terms and conditions attached. It was because she was insecure. She was needy, and, above all else, she was unhappy. She could not love herself, so she tried to pour all her affections onto others, in hopes they could love her on her behalf. But it did not work. It never did. She only ever drove people away. Sorry, I'm paranoid about something real quick. No, we're fine. Okay. I thought about, I was like, crap. Is my recording system set up right? But yeah, it is. We're good. First, Lillian. Now, Roberta, too. Though Roberta had apologized to Samantha for snapping at her earlier, their friendship was still on rocky ground. The two girls had spoken to one another briefly in the evening, but had mainly kept to themselves. Now, Roberta was lying in bed, fast asleep, and Samantha had been left all alone to stare up at the night sky. The bedroom in the youth hostel was far too cramped. Samantha felt uneasy, restless, incapable of relaxing. I still love this nightgown, it's so pretty. She exhaled against the glass windows, leaving a pool of condensation behind, and slowly traced shapes and patterns into it with her index finger. She did not know what she was drawing, and she did not particularly care. She was just trying to occupy her brain. She didn't want to think anymore. Thinking never got her anywhere. Instead, it just upset her. She could hear, in the distance, the soft sound of breathing. Roberta and Percy were lying in their beds, curled up like stray apostrophes? I don't know. George's bed, meanwhile, was empty, the duvet undisturbed. Samantha did not know where Georgia had gone, and, truthfully, she did not care very much. Most likely, she was smoking outside, or else pestering other girls in their own rooms. Being a self-styled vampire, with her unnaturally pale skin and sharp, pointed teeth, 1 in the morning, or however late it really was, doubtless, far too early for Georgia to succumb to the sweet spell of slumber. I felt like I said that wrong. I don't know. Samantha sighed, the pad of her fingertip pressed against the window pane. Droplets of water dripped slowly down the smooth glass, displaced by the warmth of Samantha's skin, which was fast beginning to cool. She had slept for only a handful of hours last night, that morning, rather, but she still could not sleep. Her mind was far too busy, crammed with far too many thoughts, mostly thoughts pertaining to Lillian. She had a chance to repair her relationship with Lillian earlier that day, and she had ruined it. She had ruined it all with her sudden tears, her red-rimmed eyes, her unabashed and, quite frankly, embarrassing desperation. Just thinking about her conduct earlier was embarrassing. Samantha's face began to turn red, a stark contrast to her poor, abused finger, which now was so cold it had turned numb. Idiot. I'm such an idiot. Samantha chastised herself harshly under her breath, letting her forehead fall against the window pane with a dull thud. Ow. Though it did not hurt, not really, she still mumbled in pain under her breath, though her voice was dull, toneless, and not particularly convincing. The window pane was wet. Now her forehead was wet too. She could feel her hair sticking to her forehead. Meanwhile, loose tendrils of hair were escaping from her braids, brushing the back of her neck. Lillian had been the one who taught her how to style her hair like this. She said it suited her. Lillian had liked to style Samantha's hair when it had been longer and they had still been friends. Lillian would hum under her breath as she ran her comb through Samantha's hair, always messy and bedraggled, forcing it into some semblance of order. Back then, Samantha had wondered whether that had been an expression of love, but now she was convinced it had been nothing more than an expression of Lillian Woodworth's desire to assert her own authority on the world around her. Once more, Samantha drew her head back and let her forehead fall against the window pane. She used more force this time. Ow. That ow she actually meant, unlike the last, not because it had hurt more, which it had done, but because something deep inside of her had started to ache. She missed Lillian. Not just Lillian. She missed Roberta, too. Why did this always happen? Why did she always drive those she loved away from her? Why was she such a fool? Why? With each successive why, spoken only inside her head, Samantha let her forehead fall against the window. The pane of glass shook, but did not break. Likewise, Roberta mumbled something in her sleep, but did not wake. Pain shot through Samantha's scalp, but the stars in the night sky continued to shine, completely oblivious of her actions. They did not care. How nice it would have been to not care. Samantha cared about far too many things all at once, until the noise in her head became quite unbearable, like a child mashing at all the keys of a grand piano. If only she could be like one of those stars, aloof, cool, and unapproachable. If only she could be more like Lillian. As Samantha stared out the window, her eyes large and unblinking, her head throbbing painfully, she swore the vast night sky was calling out to her, inviting her. Samantha knew this was wishful thinking, nothing more than a product of her own lack of sleep and overactive imagination, but at that moment she did not care. She could not stay inside this room any longer with the sleeping figures of Roberta and Percy, lost within their own respective dream worlds far, far bigger than this youth hostel. Samantha herself could not escape into her dreams, for she only ever had nightmares, but at least she could escape in the physical sense. She was going to do what she always did when she was plagued with thoughts and she could not sleep. She was going to go for a walk. Oh, this is pretty. The lake was dark under the night sky and looked far deeper than it really was. Samantha peered into its murky depths, standing at the edge of the shore, but she could not see the bottom. Illuminated only by the stars in the sky, this once nondescript lake was transformed into a historic landmark, a place of myth. This body of water could now have been the lake where Arthur had found Excalibur, the river where Lorelei sent sailors to their deaths, the waters where Ophelia had drowned herself. Not so long ago, it had also been the place where Lillian had broken Samantha's heart. Samantha had not intended to come to this lake. Her feet had simply carried her here. Maybe it was because Samantha had been thinking about Lillian so much. Her body naturally gravitated towards places where Lillian had been, as though she were a pilgrim journeying to the promised land. Lillian had stood in the center of this lake only a few hours before, her blonde hair tumbling over her shoulders in waves. Just how cold was the water, really? Samantha was curious. Doubtless, it would be colder now than it had been back then. She took a few steps forwards, shuffling her feet slightly, and dipped her big toe into the lake. The water rippled, as though attempting to suck her in. Ah! Samantha gasped, her eyes widening, and instantly drew back. Her heart hammered hard in her chest. Her toe felt as though it had been bitten into by frost, determined to sever her from the rest of her soft, warm body. Just how had Ophelia done it? How had she managed to lie in a body of black water like this, singing under her breath until she was dragged down into the darkness? Samantha had only dipped the tip of her toe in the water, and it had been such an unpleasant shock, tears had begun to bead in the corners of her eyes. Though drowning looked simple and elegant in Raphaelite paintings, Samantha doubted she could pull it off herself. She was too clumsy, too awkward. Roberta always had complained, when the girls had shared a bed in the past, that Samantha was an awkward creature made almost entirely of elbows who kept nudging and jabbing her throughout the night. Samantha would not be able to drown gracefully, the blood in her veins freezing, her face slowly turning white. Instead, she would splash and choke and cry, and her hair would tangle and her eyes would open wide in terror, far too big to be becoming. She really was useless. All she could do was upset or disappoint others, and she could not even kill herself properly. When it came down to it, she was far too scared. Perhaps it had been fear then, and not the cold, which had made Samantha back away from the edge of the lake so rapidly. Had her body realized, even though she had not yet admitted it inside her head, that maybe, just maybe, she had been thinking of killing herself? What was the point in being alive if Lillian did not love her? There was no point. She could not think of one, and yet she did not want to die either. She was afraid to keep on living, but she was afraid to die too. She could not do either properly, and so, for the last 3 months, she had settled on a compromise, sleeping her days away like Snow White in her glass coffin. But she could not even do that anymore. Why was she alive? Why had she ever been born? Why? Samantha suddenly screamed, the sound ringing like a clear bell through the still night air. In the background, the wind stirred the trees, and the water washed against the shore, but there was no other sound. None, save for an impish giggle. What? An unpleasant, unexpectedly cold sensation had suddenly spread through Samantha's neck, chilling delicate blue veins underneath her skin until they threatened to snap clean in two. What was that? What had taken hold of her so suddenly? A ghoul? A demon? A monster? Oh, is this frickin'... It's what's-her-face. As it turned out, all of Samantha's initial guesses had been correct. Partially, at least. Samantha whirled about, white skirts swirling in swathes? Swaths of organza, her eyes wide. Yeah. You. That's right. It's me. Hi there. Standing before her, not a shred of guilt playing across her face, was none other than Georgia Byron. Georgia peered at Sam, a sneaky smile playing across her lips. Hey, Sam, did I take you by surprise? Samantha pressed one hand against her breast. Her heart was beating so fast she swore she could feel it pounding beneath her palm. You're lucky I don't have a medical condition, Georgia. Otherwise, you might be looking into the face of an involuntary manslaughter conviction. Georgia grinned, waving one hand carelessly. Yes, but you don't, so whatever. I've known you since you were 11, Sam, and I know you don't have any medical problems. Not physical ones, anyway. Unfortunately, though the flesh may be strong, the spirit is weak. I don't even want to know what goes on inside that head of yours. Georgia leant forwards, wrapping the top of Samantha's cranium with her knuckles. Samantha batted Georgia's hand away, which she could not help but know was incredibly unnaturally cold. Did you wrap your hands around my neck earlier? I did indeed. Samantha surveyed Georgia, a certain amount of exhaustion that had nothing to do with sleep deprivation evident on her face, carved underneath her drooping eyes. But why? Why I wrapped my hands around your neck, or why are they so cold? Both. Well, to answer your first question, I did it because you looked really deep in thought, and I thought it'd be funny to make you jump. And as for the second one, I might have dipped them into the lake just now, before I made my grand entrance. You did? Yes, you didn't notice. You were totally off in your own little world there. Not that I'm that surprised. You didn't notice I was following you here either. You were following me? Samantha stared, her large eyes lined with long lashes. This was certainly a night of surprises. Georgia continued to smile as if their impromptu meeting at the lakeside in the middle of the night was the most natural thing in the world. Of course. I was going back to our room when I saw you leave the hostel, and I thought, I wonder what Sam's doing. This has got to be interesting. More interesting than going to sleep anyway. So, here I am. Georgia raised both hands and shook them, that unpleasant little grin still playing about her face. So, are you happy to see me? I am more surprised than anything, to be honest. I did not expect to have company. She had not really wanted company either, though Samantha could not deny Georgia's presence had helped lighten the mood a little. At least she was no longer thinking about drowning herself, not as much as she had been before, at least. It was somewhat hard to think about the intricacies of suicide whilst in Georgia Byron's presence. Georgia Byron was so very commanding, it was hard to think about anything other than Georgia Byron whilst in Georgia Byron's presence, which was, of course, just what Georgia wanted. Huh, and I was thinking you were going to act just a little bit grateful. I just saved you from a tragic and untimely death, didn't I? Samantha stiffened. What do you mean? You were going to throw yourself in the lake, weren't you? That's what it looked like to me anyway. No, I was not. Probably. Samantha was not sure if she was lying. She did not really understand her own feelings. It was true she had been thinking about it, but thinking and doing were two very different things. Samantha often thought about doing things, like attending class on time, or finishing her homework, or writing more poetry, but very rarely did these thoughts transcend the border between ephemeral musings and physical reality. I am no Ophelia. I am not pretty enough for a start. Perhaps not, but you are certainly dressed for it. You have the white gown and everything. A pause. Speaking of which, why did you decide to go on a jaunt outside in that flimsy dress? You'll sooner catch your death of cold than you will drown. I don't know. I didn't plan it out very well. I never do. It was just a whim, I suppose. So you were drawn to the water like a selkie, I feel like a selkie. I am just as lumbering as they are on the land. I doubt my swimming is much more graceful. Samantha's mother had never taught her how to swim. Instead, she had taught herself. Though Samantha did enjoy swimming, she had no doubts that her swimming could have been called elegant. Not by any stretch of the imagination. She tended to splash a lot, as though constantly on the verge of being pulled under. Georgia grinned proudly, her white incisors flashing. Incisors? I think they're incisors. And held a hand against her chest. My swimming is graceful, though. I am the star of the St. Mary's swim team, after all. You don't need to tell me that. I am already well aware. I know I don't have to tell you, but I wanted to. There's nothing wrong with showing off. So. What? That music suddenly cut off. Georgia held her hands together at her front, pressing her white fingertips together and tilted her head to one side. I noticed you and good old Bobby have been acting pretty distant all day. Didn't you make up yet? Why do you care exactly? It's not like we are friends. No reason. I'm just interested in knowing the ins and outs of dear Bobby's dreary life. It gives me more material to work with. Not that I need any more. That girl is a complete embarrassment, really. I could blush just thinking about her. I know you dislike Roberta, but she's not a bad person. She's actually rather kind. She wasn't kind enough to stick up for Percy when she was being bullied in PE, though, was she? I suppose not. No. Neither was she kind when she tried to excuse herself with her unfortunate statement that people must take care of themselves in this world. I was just trying to tell her that, as a member of the student council, she really should take more of an interest in the welfare of the student body. Particularly when one of those students was being abused so badly in her PE class, right before her eyes. Oh jeez, what is this extra information we are getting? What? The fact she lost her temper, became angry with me, only proves her guilt. She knew she was doing wrong by Percy, but she still did not try to help. She was a coward and a turncoat, the worst kind of person. I hate her. Georgia glowered, stamping on the ground with a good deal of force. A twig cracked underfoot, splintered into pieces by the heels of Georgia's decidedly non-school regulation boots. But I digress. Though I dislike Bobby, I realize she means a lot to you, though heaven knows why. So I was wondering if you were able to make up. If you had done, I doubt you would be moping around by a lake at this hour. Samantha paused, looking at Georgia from beneath her eyelashes. Georgia's expression was unusually sincere, her smile devoid of any malice. Could it be? Was Georgia Byron genuinely concerned about her? She really must have looked terrible if even Georgia Byron was being nice to her. Samantha was not sure whether she was comforted by this or not. We did make up in a sense, I suppose. It still feels a little awkward, though. I'm not entirely comfortable around Roberta. I doubt she is comfortable around me either. I think she feels guilty. Guilt? Bobby? Amazing. Perhaps she has finally found the guilt she must have misplaced when it came to dealing with Percy in September. I can imagine why, though. She did shout rather loudly at you. I didn't know she had it in her. Samantha run her fingers together. The night air was cool, and her fingers had lost all their warmth, as though they were made of china. They were just as difficult to bend, too. Neither did I. And I take it from your morose little face, you were unable to worm your way back into Miss Prissy's good graces, too. Prissy? You mean Lillian? Georgia laughed, seemingly delighted, and clapped her hands together. So you do know who I was talking about. Even you admit Lillian is a priss. No, I don't think Lillian's prissy. Not really, anyway. Not that much. Sure. Whatever you say, Sam. I did run into her earlier, but it was no good. She was much the same as ever. She did not want to talk to me, and Samantha swallowed. She was not sure why she was confessing all of this to Georgia Byron, of all people. Maybe it was because she felt lonely. Maybe it was because, despite all of her maudlin fancies and fantasies, she did not really want to kill herself. If she did, she would have done it yesterday, when she had held those scissors tightly in her hand, so tight it hurt. She had not killed herself back then, and she knew she would not do it now, either. She could not. What she wanted, more than anything in the world, was a reason to keep on living. A person she could talk to, confide in. A person who could love her. Though she knew Georgia was not, and never would be, that person. For this moment, at least, Georgia was concerned about her, and wanted to talk to her, and Samantha intended to take her up on that offer. Samantha did not like being alone. She never had done. I have no choice but to respect Lillian's decision. If she does not want to spend time with me, then I should try and keep my distance too. Even though it hurt more than Lillian, more than Roberta, more than Georgia could even comprehend. I don't know what else you were expecting. You'd sooner have luck trying to sweet talk an ice sculpture. Lillian Wordsworth is such a frigid bitch. Don't call Lillian that. Not in front of me. Even though Lillian hurt Samantha's feelings, perhaps irreparably, she still did not want to insult her. She cared for Lillian rather too much to resort to something as petty as whispered behind the back name calling. I'll call her whatever I damn well please. I can't stand her. In fact, I think she may be even more reprehensible than Bobby, and she isn't nearly as much fun to tease either. I suppose I can give Bobby a little bit, or a bit of slack for being an ass, because she at least oh gosh. What happened to my reading? What happened? I suppose I can give Bobby a bit of slack for being an ass, because she's at least moderately amusing. Bullying is about as fun as having a root canal. I have no idea why you adore her so much, Sam. Your taste in women is dreadful. She's special to me. She's intelligent and she's pretty, and being with her, it makes me feel special too. You feel special when you get treated like shit? She doesn't treat me that badly. Not on purpose anyway. She's just so enraptured with her self-supposed genius she can't see all us little people. I know. You don't need to try and explain it to me, Sam. I am already aware. Samantha frowned, biting her lower lip. She bit into it so hard she feared, for a few moments, she might have drawn blood. It wouldn't be the first time. Hey now, don't look so vain. If I were you, I would be jumping for joy that Lillian Wordsworth no longer wished to talk to me. I certainly have no desire to talk to her. You may dislike her, but I do not. I care for her. I care for her a great deal. To your detriment. Isn't that why you're so unhappy? Because you're so desperate for her approval? Samantha winced, though she did not know Georgia too well. Despite having attended St. Mary's with her for almost 6 years, it seemed Georgia understood her just fine. Was her obsession with Lillian really that obvious? You shouldn't care what other people think, Sam. Why does it matter? It matters a lot. How else can one evaluate oneself if not through the opinions of others? I see no other objective way to do it. What's this nonsense about objectivity? Georgia made 2 quote marks with her fingers as she said the word, as though it were a cliche on par with, "It was a dark and stormy night." It isn't possible to be objective in this world. As human beings, we all have our own thoughts, feelings, past experiences. They shape us and make us who we are. We all carry baggage with us, no matter how we try to present ourselves. These faces, Georgia gestured toward her own face, stark white in the moonlight like a floating death mask, are just for show. All of it is just for show. As human beings, we can't be objective, no matter what we say. It's not possible, so why not be objective instead, or subjective instead? What is wrong, exactly, with valuing yourself? With valuing yourself? The world is a cruel place, and often you'll end up on your own. In that case, the only person who can love you, and truly love you, is you. We should all strive to become our own best friend. Yet you seem to regard yourself as your worst enemy. I do not understand. And I cannot understand you. I have no idea how I could ever love myself. I don't even like myself. Then become somebody you can like. It is never too late to change. Samantha shook her head, her hair fluttering in the breeze. It was just her luck that she would become engaged in a conversation about the nature of selfhood with a pragmatist like Georgia. It isn't that simple. I can't just change, not like that. I have been me for far too long, and I see no possible way of becoming somebody else. Surely it isn't possible. Georgia shrugged. It is perfectly possible. If you want to change, there is nothing stopping you, only your own willpower. And yet I know, even if I were to change, I would not like the new me either. I would find faults and flaws in it inevitably, because that is what I do. I have always done it. I pick my own character apart, shredding it to pieces, but I'm unable to do so with anybody else because my low self-esteem will not allow me to be critical of others. Samantha stared at Georgia, her lashes fluttering, and held her hands together at her front. She held them as though in prayer, searching for an answer to demystify the world, as one would call upon a deity to grant them sublime sight, supreme understanding. I don't understand. You pick fights with others, and you antagonize people you dislike freely, and yet you never seem to mind when Roberta or Lillian say they hate you. Why does it not bother you? Why are you so comfortable with being hated? Georgia shrugged her shoulders carelessly, in a manner that did not fill Samantha with a great amount of hope that her answer would be illuminating. I don't know. I suppose it's because I know none of that stuff really matters, I guess. But how does it not matter? Of course other people matter. We must interact with them on a day-to-day basis. That is true, but just because we must interact with others, it does not mean we have to care about them. Likewise, it does not mean they have to care about us. You're painting a rather bleak picture of the world. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It makes me feel better. You see, Georgia pursed her lips, idly coiling a strand of hair about one finger. Her hair was black as pitch, and it contrasted sharply against her skin, almost as though she were constricting her body with the night of air itself. We are all just human. We all have good parts and bad parts to our characters. Even people like Bobby, even though I shudder to admit to it. People like Lillian. I hate others freely, with a boundless reserve of passion. But because I am free with my hatred, I have no doubts that others will hate me in return. In fact, I welcome their hatred. It is more than likely that I deserve it. And inspiring strong emotions in others is proof that we have made a difference in this world. It is proof that we have lived. That's just how it should be. As humans, we should hate. Hate is part of who we are. Ignoring it, suppressing it, will only make us feel unfulfilled. It will make us unhappy. We must hate, for how else can we love? I know people will hate me, but I don't care. It's only natural. As long as I continue to respect and value myself, the whole world could turn against me. I would face it without blinking. I don't need anybody's love to save my own. But you are not hated by everyone. You have Percy, don't you? Percy cares for you a good deal. You are right. I do have Percy, and I am glad for it. I love her a lot, even if she is somewhat overly idealistic. However, I would survive even if I did not have Percy. I would not allow myself to fall to pieces under something as vague and as nebulous as the opinions of the general public. Zoe, I think learning to accept ourselves is what life is all about. Samantha took a few steps backwards, her eyes downcast. Though she understood what Georgia was saying, she could not agree with her. To do so would be nothing more than a lie, and for all her faults and flaws, Samantha had made a conscious effort not to tell lies. I don't think I could ever be like that, or I could ever live like that. I care about others far too much. I want to be loved and accepted so much, I feel sick for thinking about it. I feel sick for talking about it. It was true, but Samantha's words were not as grand as Georgia's had been. Her whole body truly was shaking, and not because of the cold. When she thought of those in her life she had loved, and whose love she coveted more than anything, she really did feel faint. She had only been alive for 17 years, and how many people had she disappointed, excluding herself? She did not have enough fingers and toes combined to count off all the names. I just want to be loved. Isn't that what everybody wants? I am sure everybody wants it, but they do not look for it in the right places. You are looking for love from other people when, in reality, the only opinion that matters is your own. Even if the whole world did love you, you would not be happy unless you accepted and acknowledged that love yourself. And if you can't do that, then you may as well kill yourself. If you can't learn to love yourself, you may really end up at the bottom of a lake someday. Metaphorical or not, I cannot tell. I can't see into the future. But Samantha could. She could see her own future stretching out beyond her with such dazzling clarity it made her head spin. Oh, we get the game's art. Oh, no. She could not change. She knew she could not change. Instead, she would continue to drift through life as she always had done, aimless as a jellyfish, carried by the current. Lost her own fantasies, her feet barely brushing the ground, she would doze and dream through life, accomplishing nothing. She would drive all those she loved, and all those who loved her, away from her with her interchangeable emotions, her unfixed goals, her inability to focus, and for what gain? None. There would be none. She would sink slowly, her body engulfed in icy waters, drawing her down, 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 even deeper, into an endless abyss. She knew this would happen, for she was already partway there. Her heart was already submerged, and even now it was struggling to be. Time was running out. It had been for a while. She was drowning from within, crushed under the weight of her own melancholia, and she knew sooner or later she would drown, and when she did, she knew that nobody would rescue her. She had already inadvertently pushed everybody else away. Dang, I was right. I was hoping to be wrong because Georgia popped up and I did not expect that. But of course I was freaking right. Gosh dang, that hurts. That is emotionally painful. I am cold. I don't remember hearing the song. I must have not been paying attention when I reached the end. I think I was so shocked I finished it first time through. But yeah, that was the, I still love the barriers. It's great. But yeah, that was ending number 4, apparently. The one we got was ending number 3 with Roberta. So now we need Quincy's ending, and we need Lillian's ending.